All right. Hello. Hope you guys are all doing well. So obviously I'm not at school on camp and stuff, so making these videos hopefully should help you, and just ensure that we're not falling behind. Just to preface this, I really hope you watch this. I'm at home. What day is it? Tuesday. Recording this instead of being at the gym. So I had to go to the gym in the morning. I went to the one next to the school, and then a bunch of U12s were there, and it was real awkward. So I had to deal with that awkwardness. So in return, you have to watch these and you have to do the work. All right, so um, we're done chapter 9. We're on to our last chapter for Area Study 1, which is the chapter itself is called Ratio and Variation. And in this video, we're doing 10.1, which is ratios. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and explain it as best as I can. I have an understanding that you guys are good with ratios, considering you all do, or most of you guys do food tech. So I'll go through theory, go through example 1 and 2, and then I'll also go through the questions. Like I'll do the questions that I want you guys to do, just so in case you get stuck, you know my way of going through it, just so you can come back to it. But in saying that, I don't want you to watch the video and just copy the answers. Feel free to work with me if you need to, but just make sure you're actually learning something. So, getting straight into it, looking at ratios. Um, Ratios are like pretty good application wise, especially when it comes to cooking stuff or mixing stuff. Essentially, it's just saying how many parts of this do we need compared to how many parts of something else. So let's say, for instance, we have cordial. Obviously, when it comes to cordial, you have cordial and then you have water. No one drinks straight cordial concentrate, and also people don't want to drink water on its own, so you mix it for a good time. However, people have different ratios for which they dilute their cordial, and if we done like this, so let's say we have cordial to water. Now, if I were to say we want 3 parts of cordial for every 7 parts of water, this is kind of what it actually depicts and what it means. So let's say we have a jug like this. Not a very good jug, but you know it's gonna have to do. So, if we have 3 parts of cordial, I'll do cordial with green. We put 1, 2, 3 cups, and then if I have 7 cups of water, then I'll put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cups of water. And it's just a way of, yeah, that's just basically what ratios is, a way of mixing stuff with even parts, just so we get the same mixture over and over and over again to make sure it's, that's that. So, when we're doing ratios, there is some maths that needs to be involved. And because we're using the green calculators, we can't use the white calculators to make it easy. So we've got to do some maths itself. When it comes to ratios, sometimes we have to simplify it, which is probably one of the hardest parts of it because it requires you to know your multiplication and division off the top of your head. So if it takes you a bit of time to do this, don't stress, completely fine. Yeah. So getting straight into example 1. Example 1 says simplify these ratios. So let's do this. 1a, simplify the ratios. So A says 25 to 40. In order to simplify ratios, all we need is we need something called our highest common factor. So we need to look at both of these numbers and say what numbers go into them. So we look at 25 and we think what numbers go into them. Well, we know that 1 goes into 25, or we know that 5 goes into 25. So the factors of 25 are 1 and 5. And then we think about what numbers go into 40. Well, I know that 1 goes into 40. I know 40 is an even number, so 2 goes into 40. 5 goes into 40. 8 goes into 40. 10 goes into 40. 4, 20, so on, so on. You make that list of what numbers go into it. And then you look and you pick the highest that's in common between them. So you can see they both have 1, but they also both have 5. So 5 is the biggest number, so it's the highest common factor. So what we do is we divide both those numbers by 5. We do 25 divided by 5, which is 5. Then we do 40 divided by 5, which is 8. And you can use a calculator for that, no issue with that at all. So you get an answer of 5 to 8, or it's a ratio of 5 to 8. or 5 is to 8, whatever you want to say. So what you do is you have to find your highest common factor and then divide both numbers by highest common factor. If I do B, we have 24 to 16. Same thing, I've got to think about what numbers go into both of these. So what numbers go into 24? 1 goes into 24, 2 goes into 24, 4 goes into 24, 6 goes into 24, 8 goes into 24, 3 goes into 24, and that's, I think, it. 12 goes into 24. So you do that. And same thing for 16. What numbers go into 16? 1, 2, 8. So again, we look at the numbers are the same. We see they both have 1, they both have 2, and they also both have 8. And we want the biggest number, so we want 8. So 8's our highest common factor, and again, we divide both those numbers by 8. So if we do 24 divided by 8, pop that in the calculator, you get an answer of 3. So now it goes 3, then we do the colon, and then we do 16 divided by 8, which is 2. So you get 2. So 3 to 2 is a new ratio when it's simplified. So that's how you simplify ratios. If you were to just leave it as like, if you were to leave it as 24 to 16 or 25 to 40, I think you would lose 1 mark. So just get into the habit of simplifying whenever we do it. It's the exact same situation with C, except now we have 3 numbers. So again, you find your highest common factor, you divide each of them by the highest common factor, and then you get your answer. So moving on to example 2. This is more of a real world application of ratios and how it's used, and I'm sure you guys know how it's used as well. So example 2 says, to make concrete, a builder mixes sand and cement in the ratio 5 to 4. If a mix of concrete contains 20 kilos of cement, find A, the amount of sand in the mix, and B, the total mass in the mix. So I'm just going to go on this page, do question 2. What do I know from this? Well, I know that the sand to cement ratio is 5 to 4. Right, I've just taken that from the question. The question says sand and cement in the ratio 5 to 4. So I know that. But I also know that a mix of concrete contains 20 kilos of cement. So I know this is 20 kilos. Right? All I've done is just say that. So what I want to do is, I know 4 parts of cement is equal to 20 kilos. I need to find out what 1 part is worth. So what I do is, I do 20. That's how many kilos, divided by 4 parts. And then I'll work out what 1 part is worth. So if I do 20 divided by 4, I work out 5 kilos. So 1 part is worth 5 kilos. Now, because I want to find out how much sand is in the mix, I know that there's 5 parts of sand and 1 part is equal to 5 kilos. So I do 5 parts times 5 kilos, which equals to 25 kilos. So what that means is, now we fill this in here. If there's 20 kilos of cement in this ratio, there needs to be 25 kilograms of sand in this ratio as well. So I'll go through what I did again. So I know the ratio is 5 to 4, and the question also tells me there's 20 kilograms of cement. So now I just do 20 here. I know that there's 4 parts for 4 parts of cement. So I do 20 kilos divided by 4. That gives me 5 kilos. And what that tells me is 1 part is worth 5 kilos. And then I have a look. There's 5 parts of sand. So I do 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay, so I know there's 25 kilograms of sand in this concrete mix. Now, question B says a total mass of the mix. Well, I just add them together. I know there's 25 kilograms of sand plus 20 kilos of cement, which equals to 45 kilos altogether. So I just did that, just quick maths, but obviously use a calculator if you need to. That's example 2. That's one of the trickier ones. So you need to work out what one individual part is and then multiply it by how many parts there are. Now, example 3. It's probably the hardest kind of question you'll encounter, and it takes a bit of an understanding. So, Nick, Hong, and Rob agreed to divide the profits of their business in the ratio 2 to 3 to 5. Their profit this year was $45,000. Find the size of each person's share of the profit. So we know that there's 3 people involved, Nick, Hong, and Rob, and basically running their business. They earned $45,000 this year, and they split their profits 2 to 3 to 5. So Nick gets 2 parts, Hong gets 3 parts, and Rob gets 5 parts. What we've got to do is we've got to work out what one part is worth. That's our first step. There are 2 different ways to do this. One's what I do and one's what the book does. It's completely up to you what you do. I'll walk you through what I do on my iPad, and then if you look in the textbook, I'll kind of walk you through what they do there. So, like I said, we need to know how many parts there are to work out what one part is worth. So I know that there's 2 parts that Nick gets. I know that Hong gets 3 parts. And I know that Rob gets 5 parts. So if I add them all together, 2 plus 3 plus 5 is 10. So I know altogether there's 10 parts. Now, I need to find out what one part is worth. So I do $45,000, which is the amount of profit that they've earned this year. And I divide that by 10 parts. So I do 45,000 divided by 10, pop that in the calculator, you get an answer of 4,500. And what that tells me, $4,500 is one part. That's how much a one part is worth. Okay? So, now that we know how much one part is worth, we can work out how much each person gets. So, Nick, we know gets 2 parts, because there's 2 in the ratio. So I do 2 times 4,500. Pop that in your calculator, you get $9,000. So Nick's 2 parts are worth $9,000. I do the same thing for Hong. So looking at the question, Hong gets 3 parts. So 3 times the value of 1 part, which is 4,500. That tells me that Hong gets 13,500. So his 3 parts are worth that. And then finally we have Rob, who gets a total of 5 shares. So we do 5 times the value of 1 share, which is 4,500. And we get an answer of $22,500. So just like that, we've worked out how much each person gets. First, we needed to count up how many parts there were total, find out the value of 1 part by doing our total divided by the value divided by how many parts there are, and then we just multiplied into how many parts there were. The way the book does it is it does it similar, but a bit different. So their first step they do, so if you have a look, the first step that they do is they find out the total number of parts, which is 10. But then what they did is for Nick's share, they saw that Nick gets 2 parts. So they did 2 parts divided by a total of 10 parts times by the amount they made. So they had 2 divided by 10 times 45,000. They got the answer. Same thing for Hong. They knew Hong gets 3 parts. So they had 3 parts. So his 3 parts divided by 10 total parts times 45,000, which equals to 13,500. And finally, they also did the same thing for Rob. So they know from the question that Rob gets a total of 5 parts out of a possible 10 parts, and then they multiplied that by the amount of profit they made this year, and that's how they did that. That's how they got 22,500. So both ways are the same. You can either work out the value of 1 part and then multiply it in, or you can do what they did there. The reason why I do it my way is because then it leaves no room for errors, but also with the question before, we also worked out the value of 1 part. So if we're just keeping it consistent, it just makes it easier in my mind. But you would never lose marks if you did anything wrong. So I know that was 1, a lot of talking, 2, probably hard to listen to, 3, probably dense in content, and I don't know how long I've been talking for. Sorry if it's a long time. But that's everything on ratios. I'm going to go through the questions that I want you to do. But if you're going to do it on your own, I'm going to put the questions up here. So the questions I want you to do, So this is on page number 233. I want you to do questions 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 11. I know it seems like a lot of questions, but again, 1, I know you guys are good at this, and 2, you'll be able to breeze through it really easily and quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and do the questions now. So if you're going to do it on your own, stop the video here. Hopefully I'm timestamping this stuff. I don't really know how to do it, so we'll see if it works or it doesn't. But if you're following along, then we're going to do the questions together, and I'll walk you through everything I do. So this is 10.1 ratios, and now we're doing question 1. So question 1 says simplify each of these ratios. So we have 1a, which says 18 to 12. Remember, when we're simplifying, we want our highest common factor. So we think about what numbers go into 18. I know 1 goes into 18, 2 goes into 18, 3 goes into 18, 6 goes into 18, 9 does as well. And then look at 12. What numbers go into 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. We want the highest number that's in common between these two. So we can see that it is 6. So now what I do is divide both of them by 6. So 18 divided by 6 equals to 3. And 12 divided by 6 equals to 2. So I know my ratio is 3 to 2. Done. Following the same thing for B, we have 56 to 24. I'm going to give you guys a cheat. So you can write ratios as fractions if there's only 2. So 56 over 24, or 224, you can put in the calculator as 56 over 24. And when you pop that in the calculator, it'll give you a fraction answer. Just rewrite it as your thingy. So if you were to put 56 over 24 in the calculator, what would you get? You would get 7 to 3. Or you would get an answer of 7 over 3. And you can rewrite 7 over 3 as a ratio as 7 to 3. Alright, done. Let's do C. C says we have 27 to 9 to 36. Well, let's do again the highest common factor. What number is going to 27? 1, 3, 9. What number is going to 9? 1 and 9. What number is going to 36? 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. And just like that, we can see our highest common factor is 9. So we divide everything by 9. 27 divided by 9 is equal to 3. 9 divided by 9 is equal to 1. 36 divided by 9 is equal to 4. So our new ratio is 3 to 1 to 4. All right. Question 2. Zoe buys goods for $30 and sells them for $38. Find in the simplest form the ratio of A, the cost price to selling price. So the cost price for how much they buy it for, we know that Zoe buys it for $30. And then we say 2, that means the 2 columns, the selling price. We know she sells them for $38. So 30 to 38. Can that be simplified? Well, we've got to figure it out. If you do 30 divided by 38 in the calculator, you should get 15 over 19. So you can get simplified to 15 over 19. Right, question B. The selling price to the cost price. See, now it's the other way around. So the selling price is $38 and the cost price is $30. Thinking about it now, you probably just want to keep it in dollars and not do anything else. So our answer is $38 to $30. Question C asks for the profit to the selling price. Well, we need to find out the profit. How we do the profit is how much we sell it for minus how much we buy it for. So let's work out the profit. We know we sell it for $38 and it costs us $30 to buy. So 38 minus 30 is 8. So on each good, she makes $8 profit. So we want the profit to the selling price. So profit's $8. The selling price we know is $38. So 8 to $38. Done. And D wants the cost price to the profit. Well, we know the cost price, how much he buys it for, is $30 to the profit, which is $8. Bam, question 2 is done. Next is question 3. Question 3 says, an alloy contains copper and iron in the ratio 2 to 5. A quantity of alloy contains 20 kilos of copper. What mass of iron does it contain? So, we know an alloy has got copper to iron. Right? So there's parts of copper, there's parts of iron, and the ratio is 2 to 5. How I know that is I say copper first, so that means the first number is related to the copper. So I know the ratio is 2 to 5, and I also know that in this quantity of alloy, it contains 20 kilos of copper. So now I'm going to do it in screen. So in this specific amount, we have 20 kilos of copper, and we want to find out how much iron there is. So we can see here that 2 parts is 20 kilos. So we want to work out the value of 1 part. So we do 20 kilos divided by 2. Pop that in your calculator, you get 10 kilos. So we know that 1 part is worth 10 kilos. Now we see here that we have 5 parts of iron, right? There's 5 parts of iron. So we take the value of 1 part and times it by 5. We know the value of 1 part is 10 kilos. So we times that by 5 parts, we get 50 kilos. So in this sample, if there's 20 kilos of copper, there's going to be 50 kilos of iron. That's done. I'll open a new page. All right, so question 5. Question 5 says divide 450 kilos into the ratios 4 to 5 and 3 to 2. So question 5, it's 450 kilos. And question A says we're doing it in 4 to 5. So 4 parts and 5 parts. So our first step is to work out how many parts there are in total. To work out how many parts there are in total, we do 4 plus 5, which equals to 9 parts. So there are 9 parts in this question. We know there's the total of 450 kilos, so what we need to do is we need to work out the value of 1 part. How we do that, we take our total and divide it by our parts. So we get our total, which is 450 kilos. Divide that by our 9 parts. Put that in the calculator. I believe it's 50. So 450 divided by 9, 50. So you know that 50 kilos is the equivalent of 1 part. Now that we know that, we can put this back into our question. So if we look at our question, we have 4 parts to 5 parts. So to work out the 4 parts, we do 4 times 50, which equals to, pop that in the calculator, get 200. And then we also do 5 times 50, pop that in the calculator, you get 250. So we know the ratio is now 200 to 250. I'll let you go ahead and do question B. Question 6 says Jeff and Amal share the weekly rent of $780 in the ratio of 7 to 6. What is Amal's share? So we know the total of 780, and there's 7 parts that Jeff pays and 6 parts that Amal pays. So again, we've got to work out the value of 1 part. We do the exact same thing. We add up all the parts, find out how many parts there are total, and then do the amount divided by how many parts, and then multiply it in. So to work out how many parts there are, we do 7 plus 6, so a total of 13 parts. To work out the value of 1 part, we do our total, which is $780. 780 divided by 13. Pop that in your calculator. 60, I think the camera's flipped though. So 60, so I know $60 is 1 part. Now I've got to put it back into their ratio of 7 to 6. So their ratio is 7 to 6. So for Jeff's share, I do 7 parts times 60. If you pop that in your calculator, you get 420. We know that Amal's share, he has 6 shares. So you do 6 times 60, which equals to $360. So for a weekly rent of $780, Jeff pays $420 to Amal's $360. Yeah, that's question 6 done. Now, question 11. Question 11 says, at Nelson High, the ratio of students who speak a second language to students who only speak English is 5 to 8. There are 923 students in total. How many students speak only English? So that's a lot of information in one question. So we know we're looking at a school, students who speak a second language and English. So the ratio of students who speak a second language to students who only speak English is 5 to 8. So I'll rewrite that. So second language to only English. That's a ratio we're looking at. Now we know that it's 5 to 8. So it's 5 to 8. We also know there are 923 total students. And we want to know how many students only speak English. So we do that same thing that we've done in the past. Work out how many parts there are, divide the total by how many parts, and then work out only English in this case. So to work out how many parts there are, we do 5 plus 8, which equals to 13. So we know there are 13 parts altogether. We also know there are 923 students. So to work out the value of one part, we do 923 divided by 13. Pop that in your calculator. Get an answer of 71. So under that one, so 71 people is the equivalent of one part. Since we only want the amount of English students, or students who only speak English, we see there are 8 parts. So I do the value of one part, which is 71 times 8. That can't be right. 71 times 8. So I get 568. And what that tells me is 568 children speak only English. Alright, that's everything done. That would be a very long video, so I'm going to do timestamps. Yeah, easy, done.